Welcome back to Simplifying the State, the podcast where we break down politics so you don't have to try and figure out why we may or may not be about to start a war with Venezuela. As always, I'm Adam Watson.
I'm Nicholas Perrin.
And I'm Joe Garfinkel.
All right, now before we start, if you would be so kind as to rate us and follow the podcast wherever you're listening, and to share it with anyone you think might enjoy it, such as friends, family, or a random person you see at the mall. Okay, so today's topic, it's been pretty big in the news recently. We're going to be talking about the whole releasing of the Epstein emails. So a quick rundown for those who haven't been really tuned into what's been going on. So House Democrats released about 20,000 emails related to Jeffrey Epstein, several of which referenced Trump, with one email to Jeffrey Epstein's associate Ghislaine Maxwell and a journalist claiming that Trump, quote, knew about the girls. In another email released, Epstein said he was, quote, the one who could take him down, him being Trump. And in another one, he referenced to Trump as, quote, the dog who hasn't yet barked. This, along with other components of the scandal, has sort of cast doubt on what Trump knew and when related to Jeffrey Epstein and his pedophilia, as well as cast doubt on Trump's claim that during his friendship with Epstein, he had no idea about the pedophilia. Okay. So today we're sort of just going to be talking about the implications of these documents release, what they could mean for the president, what they could mean for our politics, what they could mean for you. So just right off the bat, how do you guys think this could impact how he is perceived by Americans and sort of by his MAGA base? How do you think this whole thing could impact that?
Well, Trump's MAGA base has always been a little against him in the fact of, in the idea of the Epstein files. They've always been pushing really hard for the Epstein files to be released. And when Trump has kind of like pushed back on that, they've been really on him and created kind of like a war in the MAGA sphere. Now, with this increased connection, will they think it's true? I'm not sure, because it was mostly like pushed for by Democrats, and they could, I don't know, come up with some explanation for it, as we've seen before. But I don't know, maybe there will be some increased anger over this, and that could like harm Trump even more in, say, the midterms or just further on in general. Drew, what do you think?
Yeah, I hope there's some anger about this. There should be. Like, what I see happening is the MAGA base will be divided. Like, obviously, there's going to be those extremists who they'll back Trump no matter what. They'll say it's fake, it's AI. But I feel like there's a real possibility that you have a reasonable MAGA participant and they might be swayed to like not align with Trump because of his actions. Or at least that's what I would do if I was backing him. Because this evidence, it's honestly kind of irrefutable. Like, where do we go from here, right?
Yeah, right. What do you guys think this could mean for Americans outside of the MAGA coalition, outside of that pretty loyal base? How do you think this could impact their perception of him?
Well, I mean, if we're only talking about swing voters, then I think this should definitely cause a lot of anger amongst them and a shift away from Trump. I mean, from those independents, I don't think there's a way that you could convince them that this is fake or this is like a misunderstanding, because, you know, like you said, Drew, it's pretty irrefutable, and it would take a lot of very good talking from Trump or anyone in the MAGA sphere to bring them to even vote for them like once, even again.
So I'm going to pose a question. How much does it actually matter? Like, how much is going to come from this? Because Trump's not going to be president again. We know this.
Right.
Could he be impeached again or anything of the sort?
Yeah, that's something I was thinking. So I think there's two components to that. The first one is, what could it mean for Republicans as a result? Because right now they're going to do a vote in the House on whether to release the Epstein files. If it passes in the House, then it goes to the Senate. If it passes in the Senate, then it goes to the president. So I think this is really going to put Republicans in a really tight spot, because either they're going to have to vote for this and go against the president, who probably will still have a decent amount of sway with his base, which makes up a decent chunk of the Republican Party, and could possibly face a midterm challenge in 2026, or they'll have to go on record and vote against the releasing of the Epstein files, which their Democratic opponents will then use to hammer them in the midterms. So I think they're in a very delicate spot politically, and I'm very interested to see what they'll do. When it comes to Trump, I was sort of thinking the same thing. Will he be impeached? Will he resign like Nixon did? Although Nixon only, resigned because the threat of impeachment was so large.
With like Watergate.
Yeah. And to that, I'm honestly not sure. I'm not sure if he would be impeached or if he could be impeached for this. I'd have to, I'm just not sure. But yeah,
I mean,
it might be.
for the impeachment thing, it's only really a problem if it happens like within the presidential term, right? Or am I wrong on that? Like, I don't think it'll
Yeah.
like kill their popularity, but famous.
Yeah, you can be impeached for a crime you commit before becoming president. So that is something
Okay.
that you can do. So he could.
Okay.
So if he did commit a crime, he could be impeached by the House and then convicted by the Senate for this.
All right.
But again, that's really going to depend on whether he committed a crime or if he just did something that's not technically illegal, but is still very, reprehensible. That's really what it's going to come down to. And then also if the Republicans in Congress choose to impeach him. So what do you guys think are the long-lasting impacts of the Epstein files? Like, for Trump, for Republicans, what could those long-lasting effects be? Like, let's talk 10 years from now. What do you think the implications are going to be politically, socially, stuff like that?
Well, it's kind of impossible to say, but I think there's going to be at least a lot of short-lasting effects, things that are going to happen soon. In 10 years, I don't know, but it's still going to be in people's minds, I bet, because that's not enough time for people to forget about it.
Yeah, and I mean, if we're thinking long term, 10 years, it's hard to say because at that point, people have a short memory. But the thing about the Epstein files is that they've been talked about for many years, and I don't think they're going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah, this could be taught about in history classes.
It probably will be, especially if this turns out to be a second Watergate, like what Adam said.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Earlier, you guys sort of talked about a fracture within the MAGA movement, and I think we're already sort of starting to see that. Notable politician Marjorie Taylor Greene said she was going to vote in favor of releasing the Epstein files. She then drew heat from Trump over that. Which, if there were to be, let's say, a MAGA civil war, let's call it, which side do you think would win? The side that wants to stay loyal to Trump no matter what, or the side that is more so loyal to the idea of MAGA? Which side do you think would win out in that situation?
I feel like the side that's loyal to MAGA would stay with MAGA, and the side that isn't would just leave, would branch out. I think that's what we're seeing. Like, I feel these MAGA people will go more Republican, which I know MAGA is Republican, but there's still a lot of differences in ideals, if you know what I mean.
I think in a way, it has to be the difference between Watergate and the fracturing of the Republican Party in, what was it, the election of 1912, where Teddy Roosevelt and Taft went their separate ways, and Wilson won the presidential election because of that. Obviously, there won't be a presidential election including Trump, but could this harm Vance's chances? Really, anyone just attached to the presidency at the moment, his chances of running for president again and for midterms. Yeah, I guess if I had to guess, we would see, if it doesn't turn out to be a Watergate scenario, we would see one person who's endorsed by Trump and another person who isn't endorsed by Trump but is also conservative running against maybe a Democrat and running for House of Representatives or senators, and that'd be interesting to see. Then we could see Democrats would even board the midterms because of that, but I don't know.
Right, so you're basically saying that we could see one Trump-backed Republican candidate and one non-Trump-backed Republican candidate within a primary or within a general election?
a general election in the like doomsday scenario for the Republican Party. But yeah, in the primary would probably be more accurate to say, or more likely to happen.
Right. I think the primaries are really going to give us a chance to see, how much influence Trump still has. I think obviously there are going to be Trump-backed candidates in primaries, and I think if a good chunk of those candidates lose, I think that'll be a pretty good indication that Trump is no longer popular, but maybe the MAGA brand still is. But that's going to be something we have to wait and see for.
So I want to say something about that. The MAGA movement kind of is Trump, right? That's his whole like base, his whole audience, I guess you could say. So I feel like without him, they kind of fall. Like once he's not president next year, he's still gonna yap a bunch and try to stay relevant, but I feel like MAGA won't have the backing they need. And I feel like this is redundant what I'm saying. I feel like we talked about this in a different episode, but it's still relevant to say. So that's just my thoughts.
Do you guys think that this could like change how Congress chooses to deal with like confidential information such as the Epstein files in the future? Like, will this cause any changes to how they deal with it?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I think this has more implications for Trump than I think it does for like the procedures in which things like the Epstein files are handled. In the future, we may see things proposed to, maybe reduce the amount, the work you have to do to release them. But that's the only thing that I could think of, and I don't really think that's really likely. But so I don't really think that this will have much impact on how Congress chooses to deal with files and such.
And I don't have an answer to that. I don't know, so I'm not going to say anything.
I mean, I'm just thinking back to like New York Times versus the United States and the Pentagon Papers, like that boosted the press. And if like the Epstein files or something like the Epstein files gets sent by the press and there has another like lawsuit about that, then I don't know, we could see a different way of how that works again. But I don't know if there's going to be a lawsuit about the Epstein files.
Right. How do you think this could impact like high schoolers? Like, do you think it could alter their perception about the president, about the Republican Party? How do you think this could impact them?
So, like, I guess a bunch of students, they're going to be new voters. Like, by the time the next election comes around, they'll be able to vote. And what's happening right now could easily dictate how they vote or who they vote for.
I mean, I think like what you said, true. Like they are going to be able to likely vote by the time, like a lot of them are going to be able to vote by the midterms. A lot of them, pretty much all of them right now are going to be able to vote for the next presidential election. So I think this will definitely stay fresh in their heads, especially with all like the memes that people have been sharing about Trump and Epstein being together. And like that one video that I've seen a lot of them like talking and laughing.
Yeah.
It's in a lot of people's minds in high school. And I feel like it'll still be in a lot of those high schoolers' minds when they like are of voting age eventually and will be able to vote in a major election.
Do you think this could impact their trust in our governmental institutions, like in the presidency, in Congress, and stuff like that?
Easily, yeah, obviously.
I mean, it's a tough thing to say because, like, at this point, they've released the files and that could, like, boost trust in them. But at the same time, it's like a double-edged sword, I guess, for government trust, Because on one hand, they are releasing
government trust?
Yeah, government trust.
Like, trust in the government.
My head jumped to, like, trust in, like, Donald Trump. So, yeah, okay.
Right. Anyone else have anything else to add?
Nope.
Nope.
All right. Thanks for listening to Simplifying the State. We'll be back next week with our next episode. Make sure to follow us on Instagram. We'll be posting stuff there. Again, make sure to follow and rate the podcast, and we'll talk to you guys next time.